Hi, this is Mike Porcaro, and you're listening to Backbeat.
All music is the same. It's just a new set of lyrics and a new backbeat.
Thanks a lot for taking some time out to have a talk with me.
My pleasure.
All right. The Porcaro family is very musical. How did it come about?
Good question. My father's a musician. My mother's a musician. My father's a drummer, percussionist, and my mother's a flautist. And they met, at a music college in Hartford, Connecticut. And my dad's father was a bit of a musician himself. He played drums as well as some brass instruments. And how the three Porcaro brothers ended up in music is your guess is as good as mine. You know, I would say our environment probably had more to do with it than anything. We were always in a well-rounded musical environment because my dad was playing jazz at night at the clubs as well as doing the local symphonies and operas and some summer stock in the summer months. So it was just something that we all kind of fell into. And if you asked my folks that question, they would have probably tell you that they wish it had been otherwise. But we all ended up following the same path, and here we are today.
I guess it was in the genes.
Well, some people believe that. I personally don't believe that because I have to say, just growing up, when I look at my father's fellow musician friends and their kids, very few went into music or even showed any interest in music or ability. I think it's a little exceptional that all three of us ended up in music. I would credit it more to, once again, to the environment that surrounded us as much as or over any gene prospect.
Mm-hmm. What made you choose the bass as an instrument?
Well, I chose bass. I started off to play drums, as all three of us did study drums at a very early age, 4 or 5 years old, because Dad played drums, and the drum set was around the house, and we would line up and show off to him while he was napping before his jobs. And essentially, I got tired of fighting over the drum set. There were so many of us trying to get at that drum set. One year at school, elementary school, I believe I was in 6th grade at the time, was offering a strings class. And I decided to pick up the bass, as I admired it as part of the rhythm section in jazz, which I was listening to a lot of when I was young. And I kind of just did it to do something else, and it stuck with me. I enjoyed it very much, and started making progress at an early age, and even working at an early age, getting called by people to come and play. So I just kind of morphed into a bass player there.
Why not? Then eventually the entire family could be a quartet of some kind.
We had a rhythm section going there. Steve went on the piano, and I guess you could say that.
How come you joined the lineup of Toto only in the 90s?
Well, I actually joined the lineup of Toto in 1982, prior to the release of Toto 4 even. But the record was recorded, it was packaged. David Hungate, the bass player then, left the band for his personal reasons. He moved into the Midwest, took his family with him, which is where he was from originally. And the guys came and asked me if I wanted to join in, and I was more than happy to be hanging out with my brothers again. I wasn't, although we played in bands together in high school, Jeff and David were a year ahead of me, and they were out of high school and well-known, up-and-coming talents and recognized by people in this town as such. And they immediately started doing work sessions, getting called to go on the road. Sonny and Cher back in those days, I believe, was one of the first ones. Bands like Seals and Crofts and Boz Scaggs. And David Hungate actually got them their first gig. That's how they met David Hungate, the original bass player. He was Sonny and Cher's bass player at the time. And they were looking for a musical director, pianist, and a drummer. And through a jam one night at Leon Russell's house up in the Hollywood Hills here locally, they ran into Hungate, and he asked them if they wanted to sign on, and do some touring and whatever else. And of course, they jumped at the opportunity. Those three guys, Jeff Porcaro, David Page, David Hungate, they became a well-known clique in the studios because of their, comfort with each other as musicians, their knowledge of each other. They played together on many different records and in many different situations, and kind of came up and made their mark together. And so when Jeff and David were forming Toto, David Hungate was was the natural choice and the obvious choice to be the bass player. I had no problem with that one way or the other, because as soon as I was out of high school, by the time they were forming Toto, I was on the road with different bands, Michael Franks. I did Seals and Crofts myself for a couple years. Boss Skaggs I toured with, and I was doing a ton of session work here in L.A., and I was quite happy with what was going on for me in my career at the time, and only cheered them on, and hoped that they would have success, as it's always been tough to crack that, as a band, to find that success. And then 4 years later, when Hungate decided to leave, well, then there was my opportunity to join up with the guys, and at that point, I was more than happy to get out of town and do something different for a change.
Well, not a bad show to hook up with.
No, not at all.
In 1997, you recorded the song Young at Heart for a soccer championship?
Yes.
Yeah, I suppose you're a devoted soccer fan, aren't you?
Well, I played soccer down at the park, actually, as in my teen years, and did the local Park Olympics and whatnot, playing soccer. But no, overall, we were, of course, baseball, football fans, like most Americans of our age. And but through our popularity as Toto in Germany and some friendships that had evolved over the years, this opportunity was presented to me and my brother Steve to write a song for the opening of the league championships over there. And we just submitted our little demo, so to speak, as I'm sure tens, if not 100 other people did. And they asked us, they gave the gig to us and said, "Come on, make this, finish the recording off." And they even brought us over to play before the opening, before the start of the game. I don't know if you call it the opening kickoff over there, but before play started, we. And it was just a great opportunity for us, and we just had a ball. We took our wives with us and had a great time. It was a lot of fun.
Well, I'm sure that was certainly a special occasion.
Yeah, it was, absolutely.
Toto took a long time to eventually play live in South Africa. What made that venue special, and what did it mean to you?
It just was a great opportunity for us to go play in a place where we knew that we were recognized and appreciated as musicians and as a band. And for many years, we avoided going over there. A lot of artists, just to, the cost of touring and the lure of the offers, would go and play Sun City over there and kind of break that boycott, that, so to speak, that artistically was going on over there. And not just through the arts, but in many other ways. When that was no longer a problem, we went over and rejoined, or just went over there, I should say, and met our friends who had been buying our records for a decade or so, and it was a great opportunity to go see South Africa and hook up with musicians down there, and it was a wonderful experience all in all.
Well, now, a new label, a new record company with support. How does it make things different for the band as a whole?
Well, it's always nice to have some advocates in your corner, and that's what your record company is supposed to be. When at the end of the day, they are, when you sign that contract with them, they are supposed to be your advocates. And EMI, a wonderful bunch of guys who are enthusiastic about the band, even at this late stage of the game, and came to the table with a really nice offer, and have since shown incredible support and enthusiasm for the band. We were with Sony for 25 years, and for 23 years, I guess you could say, and for about 19 of those 23, 24 years, they were not our advocate. The way that the corporate ego works, the corporate record company president works over there, once we've seen 5 record company presidents come and go during our time with Sony Music.
Just a mega machine.
And just a mega machine, and each guy has got to discover his baby. That's, he's got to leave his, that's his stamp he wants to leave when he is no longer around. And basically to hell with whoever else was signed by somebody else before their arrival.
Yeah, that's a sick concept.
That's the way it works in the U.S., especially in the corporate record company biz in the U.S. Where, for instance, in Europe, it's a much different situation, or was, I should say. I don't know if those pressures internationally are finally taken hold over there. I would imagine they just might be. But the presidents of our labels that we met in the various countries and territories in Europe and elsewhere, it's a much different situation. You didn't have that kind of feel for that kind of ego and power and I remember seeing them, for instance, take out windows in the tower of the Capitol building here in Hollywood because the president couldn't get his special antique desk, the new president. They couldn't fit it up the freight elevator. They actually brought in cranes and did ridiculous amounts of work taking out windows so that they could crane his desk into his office, And you don't get that feel. In Europe, they're much more normal, the executives there, and much more approachable and much more regular, I might say.
Do you think the record companies get somewhat lackadaisical when a band has been around for so long?
Oh, absolutely, because, once again, they're trying to keep on top of the curve of the youth. But, they're trying to push the young acts and trying to stay on top of that curve. And the way radio has gone, corporate radio, corporations have completely taken over radio in this country, and I can see it happening over in Europe as well right now. But, of course, the older bands in the stable, they're invaluable to these companies because of their catalog, know? And the catalogs are always great sellers, and especially a band like Toto's catalog has always been an incredible asset to Sony Music. And But so they get lackadaisical. They own those records. They own those masters via the contract. And in the meantime, they take a lot of that money, I'm sure, and they use it to push their new acts and to do their little radio scams and everything else that's going on. So yeah, that's why bands, the older bands in the stable, tend to fall by the wayside. They know that they've got a built-in audience for these bands, and that they're going to sell X number of records, and they become very lazy and lackadaisical.
Unfortunately. On the new album, Through the Looking Glass, there are quite a few guest musicians performing. Was that a conscious decision to do so instead of just the band members producing the pieces themselves?
Well, we did produce these pieces ourselves, and in fact, it was a wonderful time for us because there were no producers, engineers, managers. There was nobody in the studio at the time but the 5 guys in the band throughout the whole album. And once we decided on the tunes we were going to do, just through our connections and through our friendships through the years, we thought, hey, this guy would be great to do background vocals and sing some scats underneath Bobby on this tune, and this guy would be great for this. And we merely just jumped on the phone and basically brought these people in as just as friends and as great musicians, singers, to come in and help us enhance the sound of the record.
How was the new album a break from recording original tunes?
Well, it's a break in the fact that we had a ton of touring planned, coming up here this weekend. We'll be over in Europe, and Japan in December for a month, including Korea and other places. Central America, South America. I mean, Toto has been a player on the scene internationally for these last 25 years, and we had all this touring up in front of us. Of course, the promoters, they want to have a record to help co-promote with the touring, to help fill the seats, to bring the record company into the mix, And so we figured it would take us about a year and a half to come up with an original album, because it does take that long. You have to write these songs from scratch. You have to labor over the lyrics, and that can be that could take months just on one song. Trying to, there's no time. You can't adhere to a timetable when you're creating original material.
Mm-hmm.
So we figured the best way to satisfy everybody and have something by the time our tour started was to just go in and have some fun and make a quick record, something that wouldn't take us a lot of time. And that was accomplished by doing a lot of these old cover tunes, standards to us, tunes we've all loved and admired the writers or performers thereof over the years. And it was a great deal of fun. Of course, we always try to put our own spin on these things so that it's unique to us and our sound, working with the arrangements a little bit, maybe adding here, subtracting there, trying different tempos, different things on these things. And I think we basically did a good job accomplishing that on this one. But it allowed us to have a product for our fans, celebrate our 25th anniversary, and not be stuck in the studio, be out there on the road meeting our commitments to our fans out there for these upcoming tours that we've been planning.
With all the members of the band being so prolific, as well as with so many side projects going on, is there a clash that occurs as to who and what music gets chosen?
With any band, there's always some debate. But with this band, over the years, I can honestly say that it hasn't really been a problem, because, we all recognize a good song when we hear it. And when somebody brings in what we consider a great tune, it doesn't matter who wrote the song. It's going to be good for everybody if the album and the songs on that album are successful. So we don't debate about it too much. We just let the tunes kind of pick themselves, and we do kind of vote on them. I mean, we got to have a majority, so to speak. We are democratic about it, but there's very little haggling and argument, because the cream rises to the top, and the good tunes are pretty easy to pick out.
And when you guys record something, you don't hack it to death and work on it 1,000 times, do you?
No, we're just the opposite. Sometimes I wish we would hack some things on listens down the road. I kind of wish we had hacked a couple of tunes out a little bit more. We basically listen to the tune, and we go in, and within 2 takes, 3 takes maximum, we've basically, have the tune sounding the way that we want it to sound, and we move on. We really don't spend that much time laboring over these songs. Some people like that approach that we take. Others think that we should spend more time on our songs. It's a personal opinion, but this is the way we do it, and it seems that it's worked for us over the years, and we don't fight it too much.
So you guys tend to record a la Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, we kind of like to take things in your first, second approach to them, and to get your initial the way you hear them initially, and your initial reaction to them, and that's most of the time. I think it works out the best that way, rather than laboring over something. Sometimes you can take the life completely out of it, out of what was once maybe a raw or less polished sounding approach to it. Although I've never been accused of Toto music sounding unpolished, but for us, we always like first impressions are always best, I think.
I checked out the Toto website, well designed and thought out.
Yeah, is that incredible? It's got to be one of the great websites in rock and roll.
It is.
Toto99.com is run by 2 German brother and sister in Germany. They are both web page designers professionally, and huge Toto fans since the beginning. And Mark and Petra are their names. The last name escapes me. I'm not at my computer, but Mark and Petra have been with us forever, and they've done this as a labor of love, initially without really any financial assistance from the band. We would always answer any questions they had or do interviews with them, but this has just been an incredible labor of love, I assume, on their part, and we owe them so much for what they've done, because it really is an outstanding website, vast and just so well done. We are more and more involved with them over the last couple of years, and we're going to start getting into merchandising more, because the number of hits, if you've noticed when you get on that site, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's just it's really made an imprint on our fans worldwide, and as well as people who aren't our fans. A lot of people probably go to that site just to get an idea for their sites. And it's one of those kind of sites, and just an incredible job they do.
The word Toto has so many different meanings throughout the world, I noticed on the website. And what would you say is your favorite?
Oh, geez. I don't know that I have a favorite. I know that in Latin it kind of means all surrounding or all encompassing.
Right.
That might describe our music a little bit. It wasn't chosen for that reason. I don't think half the guys in the band were even aware of that definition of it at that time. But the simplicity of the name was why it is held and through the years. Actually, in the beginning, the band was in the studio recording its first album, and hadn't come up with a name for the band yet. And but you needed to put a name on the sheets at the end of the day for billings and whatnot to the record company. And Toto was chosen because they were looking for just a simple name. They knew it was going to be an international release.
So short and sweet.
And short and sweet, like Kodak, you know. And Toto, and only and the album was finished and ready to turn in, and nobody had come up with a name yet for the band, so they just decided to run with Toto. And you know, it's kind of helped and hurt us over the years. You know, but I love the simplicity of the name. Nobody's going to have a hard time remembering who your band is.
No, certainly not.
And in every language, there seems to be a Toto as part of the vocabulary. And,
some are good and some are bad, or positive or negative.
Yeah, but these are only things that we found out like through the years as we did in our travels. Toto was the porcelain maker for the Emperor in Japan.
Oh.
And now they're mainly known as your American Standard type company, making toilets and sinks and whatnot. So, you know, needless to say, we got many pictures from friends traveling in Japan of little gifts they left in some of these porcelain bowls, shall we say.
I can imagine.
And, you know, with the name Toto stamped in the porcelain above these, you know. Anyways, but it's, you know, the name has definitely stuck and held. Sometimes we wish we had chosen another name, because we feel it in a lot of areas, in a lot of ways, that if we could release our music under a different name, a lot of people would take a listen to it who don't listen to it presently, and we might gain a lot more ground than we currently do because of that name association.
Well, mentioning Toto, I read somewhere on a site that you guys have a hard time getting gigs in Canada.
Yeah, we do. North America in general.
That's weird.
You know, it seems Toto is like will outsell Van Halen and just about anybody else you can name, almost anywhere in the world. But when it comes to North America, we can't seem to get arrested. Now, I have always put that off to American radio and its fickleness and its flavor of the day, month, week, year kind of way that it's been. You know, music genres will change every 2 years on American pop radio, and so that, you know, whereas in Europe that hadn't been the case so much, although in recent times now I think it is changing and becoming much more like America radio over there. You know, the corporate world over here, and the way radio has become the corporate world with your Clear stations and other companies that own the billboards, 1,700 stations, and the promotion business. So you got to play their game, and if they even let you play it, you know, that things like that, I think are, you know, part of the reason why North America, Canada, and the U.S. haven't been great for this band. I also think that we made a big mistake after 1982 when we won all the Grammys. of not going out and touring immediately after that. Incredible offers, big, large venues, and the band had just gotten back off of an extensive tour just before the Grammys and was kind of burnt out, and the checks were coming in, and guys got a little bit lazy and decided to just stay close to home. And you can't do that in this country when those doors are open. You have to immediately go out and take advantage of that.
True.
And cement that audience in. Once you've done that, then you can come back for the next 20 or 30 years. But that was a failure on our part, I think, also to take advantage of that, because sure enough, within 2 years, all of a sudden you had new wave and punk and all that was dominating the channels. And so it's been from that time on. Every couple of years, grunge, this, that, rap. Now we're here, we're there, we're everywhere.
Do you think part of that reason might have been the change in musical direction as well as the lead singer?
Well, I don't think so. I really don't see that. You could be right. That could be part of the equation of what happened in North America. But I don't see that entirely, because those doors closed pretty fast. The whole feel of top 40 radio, shall we say, just changed and went far more youth, far more rough sounding. It became fashionable to not know how to play your instrument. It became, it became fashionable to have fashion. A lot of things were happening that continue to happen. It's geared to a more youthful audience than ever. Adult-oriented radio started to disappear very quickly around that time, which is a shame, because there's millions of us around the country, around the world, that really don't have a viable radio outlet to listen to. It's all geared to that 13 to 21 kind of age group.
Well, I often find that here in Germany.
Well, that's what's going on everywhere now, whereas before, like in Germany, album-oriented kind of radio was the thing. It was, but they're starting to take their cue from the States. The corporations are involved once again, and here we go. But there's this whole, with the disappearance of adult-oriented radio, there's something for somebody to grab a hold of and start up again, because there's this whole huge audience out there that's not buying records.
Definitely.
That could care less about what Eminem has to say.
For sure.
And can you honestly see Eminem in 20 years doing his current shtick on stage? I mean, it just won't fly.
Sorry, no way.
Yeah, it's destined to, everything you hear today, most of it is destined only to have a very short lifespan. I don't think you'll be talking to many people like me 20 years down the road, God bless that you should be around, that can say, yeah, we're in our 25th year as a band. Isn't that amazing?
Cool.
I think those days are gone. I think we're among the last of the bands that you can say that about.
Well, you got at least another 15 years. Look at the Stones. They've been around for 40.
That's right, and when they quit, then we'll start looking at what we want to do next.
That's
but
right.
Until they do, I think there's some inspiration for us right there.
Getting back to the Grammys. Now, Toto has won Grammys in the past, as you said, in 1982. Does being nominated or winning a Grammy today still have the same appeal as receiving one for the first time around?
Oh, gosh. I would think so. I mean, we didn't let that get to our heads. I mean, we've been in the business and been not only for ourselves, but as hired musicians for many hit records and every artist under the sun at that time. It was nice to be recognized by your peers, and we knew that this wasn't a popularity contest. This wasn't the American Music Awards. This was the Grammy Awards, which is an heiress, and it's voted on by, the string players down at Fox Studios and engineers and industry people, and as well as your fellow musicians who belong to NARIS. And so this was recognition within the industry, and that's a wonderful thing. I mean, we were very happy to receive that recognition and thrilled to. It made for a wonderful night that night that we'll never forget. But the next day it was back to business as usual, and we still had to use the bathroom the next morning like normal people do, and et cetera, et cetera. So to receive that kind of recognition within the industry again, that would be wonderful. I don't know that it would have the excitement of 1982 to us, but it's still a nice thing. It's nothing that we scoff at, so to say.
Outside of Toto, which would you say was the most interesting artist or album you've worked on or with?
Oh gosh, impossible to answer. There's been so many.
So many.
And I would need to rack my brain and go through the archives, which I don't even keep.
What sticks out the most?
You know what was one of my great thrills, I'll tell you, was when Jeffrey and I, my brother Jeffrey and I, played with Aretha Franklin on an album of hers. Oh, this was 15 years back, I would imagine by now. Because it was listening to Aretha Franklin's album, I Never Loved a Man the Way I Loved You, I believe was the title of it. It had Respect on it as well as a few other things. And the musicians on that album that were playing, your Jerry Germonts, your Bernard Purdys, that made me, as a guy who just had switched from drums to bass, want to play bass. I loved the R&B. I loved that record. And I loved what the bass spoke to me on that record. And I just started playing bass, and it was an inspiration to me, a big inspiration to me at that time. And Aretha, of course, was just, what can you say about Aretha? She speaks for herself, her music, her talent, her voice, her ability, her musicianship. And to come around full circle from a young kid just getting into the instrument to be asked to come and play on a couple of tracks on her record, my brother Jeffrey and I, was just definitely a milestone for me. To end up sitting across from her, in fact, she was playing piano. She was the pianist on that session. It was her, my brother Jeff, and me cutting these tunes as a trio. And what a thrill that was for me. It kind of cemented in that I had arrived in some way, shape, or form. And it was just to look at her, who I just was worshipped. That was definitely a big moment.
What part of the oncoming tour are you looking forward to the most?
Oh, I'm looking forward to it all. I'm just looking forward to getting out of the house for a few weeks at this point. It's always fun over there. It is Toto's home, Europe. We have done so well there from the get-go, and have made so many friends, and the genuine enthusiasm that people have for us when they come down to our shows, it's what's kept us going all these years. So I'm looking forward to it all. Excuse me, Germany, Switzerland, Denmark, Holland, Sweden, Norway, Finland. These places have all been important to us and have sustained us through the years. And France is coming up at the end of January. We're going to be 3 weeks in France alone. What can you say? One's a favorite 1 year, another's a favorite, another tour. Holland used to be our biggest market. Then Germany was our biggest market. Scandinavia became our biggest market for a number of years. France, for the last 5, I would say, has probably been our biggest market in Europe. Not that the others have disappeared, but just one seems to exceed the other at any given time over the course of our career. So we're well traveled over there. Let me put it that way for over the years here. And I really don't have a preference of one place over the other. I love it all.
What is planned in the future for Toto?
Well, one step at a time at this point. We just signed this record deal with EMI for the current release. It's only a one-record deal. We definitely plan on doing an original album once we get through these runs that we have coming up. So as soon as we can get back home and get settled down for a second, we'll probably start on a fresh album. And within the next year and a half, 2 years, be back over there again, hopefully. God willing, a lot of things have to happen, and a lot of people have to stay well, and life being what it is. We're not those 20-year-old guys anymore.
True.
Very true. And but it's been such a wonderful run, and we have no plans in the foreseeable future to put on the brakes. So upward and onward.
Well, I'm looking forward to some new material from Toto. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm happy with the album. It sounds great.
Thank you very much.
Always looking forward to brand new Toto material.
Great.
Tambu, I thought, was a fabulous album.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
It had a lot of good percussion, rhythm, guitar, everything. It was just great.
Fantastic, man. Well, thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. Because
Well,
you certainly sound like one heck of a amusing, humorous bunch of guys.
You know what? We have a lot of fun, man. Make sure you come out and find us. We'll do a little hang, have a beer or a soda or whatever you want to get into, and have some chuckles, because that's what it's all about out there.
All right.
Appreciate it.
That's it for me. Have a nice day.
All right, you too.
I'm sure the weather's great there. It's raining here.
It's actually cooling down here in L.A., but that's a good thing. It's been way too hot, and it's nice to see some autumn weather here.
Yeah, I suppose.
Thanks again. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. I thank you.
My pleasure.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.